What if I told you that privacy, something we consider a fundamental human right, didn't exist for most of human history? For thousands of years, humans lived without any expectation of being alone, without locked doors, without private thoughts. In the 1300s, living alone was suspicious. Private conversations were treasonous. Even private thoughts were heretical. The Catholic Church taught that God could see into your soul, and earthly authorities weren't far behind. Houses had no hallways, no separate rooms, no locks. Entire families slept in single chambers. Servants, masters, children, and guests all shared the same spaces, the same beds, the same lives. If your relationship with God was individual, then your inner life was individual. The Protestant Reformation didn't just split Christianity, it created the modern concept of the private self. The answer came from English common law, which developed the radical principle that a man's home is his castle. This wasn't just about property rights, it was about psychological space. In 1785, Bentham designed what he called the panopticon, a prison where guards could watch every prisoner without being seen themselves. Bentham thought this was utopia. Constant observation would eliminate crime, he believed, because people behave better when they know they're being watched. Your home became a zone where external authority couldn't penetrate, where you could think dangerous thoughts, hold forbidden beliefs, and live according to your own conscience. Victorian homes were fortresses of private life, with separate bedrooms, private studies, and locked diaries. The telephone meant conversations could be overheard. Photography meant private moments could be captured. Telegraph messages could be intercepted. Each innovation that connected people also exposed them. The idea of having secrets became not just acceptable, but essential to being a proper person. Privacy was so important that new laws emerged to protect it. Court decisions extended privacy rights to contraception, abortion, and sexual behavior. The idea that government couldn't regulate private consensual activity between adults became a cornerstone of liberal democracy. We invented privacy to protect individual freedom, but we're surrendering it for individual convenience. It was a human invention, created for specific historical reasons. If those reasons no longer matter to us, if we prefer connection to solitude, if we trust algorithms more than our own judgment, then perhaps privacy was just a temporary phase in human development. Medieval peasants had no choice about their lack of privacy. It was about preserving the space where authentic selfhood could emerge, where dissent could form, where the individual could exist apart from the crowd. Today, we're trading that privacy for convenience. Whether that's progress or regression depends on what we think freedom is really worth. We're choosing to give ours away one click at a time. Privacy evolved from a medieval luxury to a modern necessity. The first privacy laws weren't about government surveillance. They were about newspapers printing embarrassing photographs of wealthy socialites. The idea that you could have a secret inner life, hidden from your family, your community, and your rulers, was not just foreign but literally unthinkable. Privacy wasn't discovered, it was invented. Today we're watching that invention slowly disappear. The Nazis monitored private conversations. The Soviets recruited neighbors to spy on neighbors. The goal wasn't just to catch criminals, it was to eliminate the psychological space where opposition could form. English revolutionaries used it to justify rebellion against the king. American colonists used it to justify independence from Britain. The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution, protecting against unreasonable searches, wasn't just about property. Digital technology promised to enhance privacy through encryption and anonymity. Instead, it created new forms of surveillance that would have amazed even Bentham. Every click, every search, every purchase, every movement could be tracked, recorded, and analyzed. The panopticon wasn't just possible, it was profitable. It was about preserving the private space where free thought could exist. We carry devices that track our location, monitor our conversations, and record our activities. We share our thoughts on social media, our purchases with algorithms, our DNA with databases. We've created a world where privacy requires constant effort, where being alone means disconnecting from the tools we need to function in modern society. Privacy wasn't just personal comfort, it was political necessity. Free societies required spaces where people could think without surveillance, where they could form opinions without oversight, where they could become individuals rather than subjects. For the first time, you could move from room to room without passing through someone else's space. You could have a conversation without the entire household listening. You could think thoughts that belonged to you alone. They realized that total surveillance, even for good intentions, would destroy something essential about human nature. The possibility of being watched was different from actually being watched. When you know you might be observed, you start policing yourself. You become your own guard. The story begins in medieval Europe, where privacy was not just absent but actively dangerous. This wasn't poverty, it was philosophy. Medieval thinkers believed that isolation corrupted the soul. Humans were social creatures, they argued, and solitude was unnatural. The worst punishment wasn't death, it was exile. To be alone was to be less than human. When Martin Luther challenged the Catholic Church in 1517, he didn't just reform theology, he accidentally invented the private conscience. Luther argued that each individual had a direct relationship with God, unmediated by priests or institutions. This meant that your thoughts, your prayers, your relationship with the divine belonged to you alone. Privacy didn't make you free, it made you dangerous. The transformation began with something surprisingly mundane. Architecture. The 1500s, wealthy Europeans started building houses with corridors. This sounds trivial, but it was revolutionary. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Protestant Christianity. This was revolutionary beyond anything Luther intended. If your conscience was private, then your thoughts were private. The political implications were staggering. People had private thoughts, how could rulers control them? By the 1600s, privacy had become a political weapon. But privacy's greatest champion was an unlikely figure, a reclusive English philosopher named Jeremy Bentham. The Panopticon was never built as Bentham envisioned, but the idea terrified his contemporaries. This insight shaped modern democracy. The 19th century saw privacy become a middle-class obsession. But technology began undermining privacy almost as soon as it was established. The 20th century turned privacy into a battleground. Totalitarian regimes understood that controlling private life meant controlling political thought. Democratic societies fought back by strengthening privacy protections. Then came the internet, and everything changed again. Today, we're conducting a vast experiment in voluntary surveillance. The irony is profound. The question isn't whether we can stop this trend, but whether we want to. Privacy was never natural or inevitable. But before we let it disappear entirely, we should remember why our ancestors fought so hard to create it. Privacy wasn't just about hiding embarrassing secrets. 500 years ago, humans invented privacy to protect freedom. If you enjoyed exploring this idea, subscribe for more echoes of the past that shape our present.